My name is Quinn, and yeah, I got blasted into a wall on the last day of school. Not exactly the send-off I was hoping for. Some guy charged down the hallway, slammed his palms together, and shot a beam of green energy straight at my chest. I had nowhere to go. I just gritted my teeth and took the hit. My body flew backward and cracked into the corridor wall. Story of my life, honestly. A crowd formed instantly. One girl even ran over to check on me. Then she saw it was me and backed away like nothing happened. Her friends laughed at her for trying. She turned red. I picked my glasses off the floor. The side had snapped off again. While everyone else was crying and hugging goodbye on the last day, I just walked home alone. And honestly, I preferred it that way. My apartment was barely big enough for a bed and a desk. Government issued. No family, no money, no nothing, just for walls and a TV I never watched. Both my parents died in the war when I was 10. The government gave me a tiny box to live in and called it support. Thanks, I guess. The war was against beings called the Dalki. They looked human, except for the dragon tails and scale-like skin covering their bodies. They showed up one day demanding resources and slaves. Humanity said no. We almost got completely wiped out in the fighting that followed. Then a handful of people stepped forward with secret abilities they had been hiding for years. They shared enough to turn the tide and save us. But of course, the powerful abilities went straight to the rich and the military. The rest of us got whatever scraps were left, which was basically nothing. I got a tiny government apartment and one strange black book my parents had left behind. That was my entire inheritance at age 10. The book had a weird ring symbol on the cover and flat out refused to open. I had tried everything I could think of to crack it open. That day was test number 112. Hydrochloric acid poured directly onto the cover. Still nothing. Not a scratch, not a reaction, not even a smudge. I flopped onto my bed and turned the TV on for background noise. War updates again. Tensions rising with the Dalki. Possible new conflict coming. I stared at the ceiling and thought about how spectacularly unfair everything was. Then I got up to fix my broken glasses like the optimist I am. I tried to push the loose lens back into the frame. It shattered. A piece of glass sliced my thumb, and I started cleaning up the mess from the floor. One drop of my blood landed on the surface of the book. The ring on the cover started to glow, slowly at first, then brighter and brighter. The book rose into the air completely on its own. I stumbled backward and hit the wall. Pages started flipping by themselves at impossible speed. The words inside weren't in any language I'd ever seen before. But somehow, standing there watching it, I understood every single one of them. Then my vision started going dark. My legs gave out under me. I hit the floor, and right before I blacked out, I heard a voice inside my head. Congratulations, you have been granted the V. And then it was gone. Lights out. I didn't hear the rest of it. I woke up face down on the floor with a splitting headache and absolutely no idea how much time had passed since I collapsed. Out of pure habit, I grabbed my glasses and put them on. Everything went blurry immediately. I took them off, and the room was crystal clear. I walked to the wall and drew the letter A with a pencil. Then I stepped back slowly, all the way until my back touched the opposite wall, still perfectly sharp. My eyesight had been terrible my entire life, and now, just like that, it was completely fixed. Because of that book, I spun around to look for it. Gone. Completely gone. Vanished from a room the size of a closet, with nowhere it could possibly be hiding. It's not a sock. Books don't just disappear. I said out loud to nobody, then immediately felt ridiculous for saying it. I forced myself to think clearly. Before I blacked out, there was some kind of message. A system message. The moment I thought about it, a screen appeared. User, Quinn Talon, race, human. Level 1, HP 10 out of 10. Strength 10. Agility 10. Stamina 10. 0 out of 100 EXP. I stared at it floating in front of my face. Okay. This is literally exactly like one of those old video games nobody plays anymore. The skills tab had everything locked with question marks. The shop tab said it unlocks at level 10. The quest tab was the only thing I could actually use. Main quest, reach level 10. Daily quest, drink 2 liters of water. Reward 5 EXP. I opened my mini fridge and started going through every water bottle. After the 8th bottle, my stomach felt like a balloon about to pop. Then a notification appeared. Daily quest complete. 5 EXP gained. 5 out of 100. Well, at least I know the system actually works. I closed the screen and lined up the empty bottles on the desk like trophies. Then came a loud knock at the door. A massive bald soldier in a black military uniform stood in the hallway staring at me with zero patience. Sergeant Griff, medals covering his chest, a face carved from pure judgment. Boy, the vehicle has been waiting outside for 5 minutes. Let's move. right? Military school. Today was the day I shipped out. I had literally forgotten with everything that had happened inside that apartment. At 16, everyone in the country gets sent to military school for 2 years. Mandatory, no exceptions, because the Dalkey Peace Treaty wasn't going to hold forever. I followed Griff outside, and the second the sunlight hit me, my entire body felt like someone had doubled its weight without warning. A notification appeared immediately. Your body is being hit by direct sunlight. All stats will be halved while you remain in direct sunlight. My HP dropped from 10 to 5. My strength cut in half. I was already sweating through my shirt, and we hadn't even reached the bus yet. A new daily quest popped up right after. Avoid direct sunlight for 8 hours. Reward 5 EXP. I actually smiled when I read that one. Sleep counts toward the quest. I can complete it literally in my sleep every single night. That's the easiest EXP I've ever seen in any game. I dragged my exhausted body onto the bus, and the instant I stepped into the shade, everything snapped back. Full stats, full energy, just like that. The bus was packed with students I didn't recognize at all from different schools. Nobody paid attention to me. I sat at the front and stared forward. About 10 minutes into the ride, a strange notification appeared. A substance in the air has been detected. You are feeling sleepy. Resistance +1. I looked around slowly. Every single student around me was already asleep or nodding off fast. The whole bus had gone quiet in under a minute. My own eyelids started getting heavy, but the system kept fighting back for me. Resistance +1, then +1 again. It was working. Then Griff appeared right above me. Looks like a few of you managed to resist the sleeping gas. Guess we'll have to do this the old-fashioned way then. A black cloth bag dropped over my head. Some gas seeped in through the fabric almost immediately. I tried to hold my breath and failed. I was gone. I woke up to cold water splashing across my face. Green grass under my hands, somewhere I had never seen in my life, and it was unlike anything I had imagined. 200 students scattered across an open field, all looking around in total confusion. And surrounding us was a city that looked like it belonged to another century. Flying ships cutting through the sky, levitating trains, giant robots moving crates. Technology the public had never been given access to, all right here. On every student's wrist was a digital watch displaying a single number, their power level, and everyone's was set to 1 while the testing hadn't started yet. Mine said 1. It had always said 1 my entire life. And no matter how much I wanted things to be different, some part of me already knew what was coming. If you've ever felt like the entire system was designed to keep you at the bottom, you're going to understand Quinn better than anyone. This is just the beginning. Drop a comment. If you woke up with a system like this, what would be the first thing you'd do? Let me know down below. So there I was, standing in the middle of a military city I'd never seen, sweating through my shirt because of the sun, with a power level of 1 on my wrist. 200 students all around me, and every single one of them was staring at their watch like it was going to magically change. Mine wasn't changing. Sergeant Griff stood in front of us and explained the watch. It tracks your power level, your access, your money, your everything at this academy. And that number on your wrist, he said, is your identity here. He smiled when he said it. I didn't like that smile at all. Then he announced the testing would begin immediately. Groups of 5 called up at a time to go prove what they were worth. I already knew what my results were going to be. I'd been a level 1 my entire life. The only question was whether that was still true now. Before my group got called, someone appeared next to me. Tall, blonde, sharp jaw. The kind of face that makes other people immediately pay attention to him. Hey, are you okay? He said, looking me up and down. You look like you're about to pass out. Want me to call someone? I told him I was just nervous about the test. He looked at me for a second like he didn't quite buy it, then smiled anyway. Don't worry about it. I'm pretty strong. You know, if anyone gives you trouble, just come find me. He said it like it was the most normal offer in the world. His name was Vorton, and I genuinely could not tell if he was being sincere or if this was some kind of setup. I'd learned not to trust the friendly ones, but when he stuck his hand out to shake mine, I took it. First time in a long time someone with this kind of energy actually bothered with me. The second our hands touched, a system notification appeared right in front of my eyes that I was absolutely not expecting. Use of ability has been detected. The ability has been rejected. That was it. Short, clean, completely unexpected. I stared at the message. Vorton still hadn't let go of my hand. Then the message repeated itself again, word for word. I let go immediately. Vorton had this strange look on his face, puzzled, almost frustrated, like something hadn't worked the way it was supposed to. You, he said slowly. What's your ability? Something in his tone had shifted. He was genuinely curious now, not just making small talk anymore. I thought about it for a second, then decided I wanted to see his actual reaction when I said it. I don't have one, I said flatly. The puzzled look disappeared from his face instantly. Like that answer made sense to him somehow. Like it explained exactly what had just happened. Before he could say anything else, Griff's voice cut through the crowd and called 5 names, including mine and Vorden's, to come forward for the test. Our group had 5 people. Me, Vorden, a nervous small guy named Peter who looked like he was about to collapse, and 2 girls named Layla and Erin. Layla had short brown hair and was carrying a bow on her back. A black one that looked like it was carved from something alive. A beast weapon. I'd only ever heard about those. Then there was Erin. Perfect proportions, long blonde hair, and an expression so flat and neutral it never changed no matter what was happening around her. We got transported out to a wasteland testing field by some hooded guy with a teleportation ability. 1 second standing in the city, next second, open wasteland. The instructor out there was a woman named Jane. She had a tablet, a calm voice, and absolutely zero interest in wasting anyone's time. She called Peter first. Peter had no ability either. Jane handed him a book, a free ability book from the military. Just like that, Peter's eyes lit up like someone had handed him a lifeline. He didn't care about the level 1 rating they gave him. He had something now. That was enough. Then Jane called my name. I stepped forward. She asked what ability I had, and this is where I had to make a decision that actually mattered. I already knew the military gives every student with no ability the same Earth-type ability book. It locks you into their system. You want to get stronger, you come back to them. The problem was I couldn't use it anyway. My system had already given me something. Taking their book would just create questions I wasn't ready to answer. I don't have an ability, I said. Jane handed me the book anyway, and the second I touched it, a system notification appeared in front of me. Unable to learn this ability. Would you like to convert the book into 10 XP? I stared at that second line for a long moment. 10 XP was genuinely tempting. I was at 80 out of 100. That would almost push me to level up right there on the spot. But I handed the book back. I'm sorry. I don't want it. Jane stared at me. The other students stared at me. Even Vorden looked surprised. Jane stepped away and made a quiet call on her earpiece. Whoever was on the other end told her to let me take the test anyway. So she did. My test results were exactly what you'd expect from someone with have stats. Standing in direct sunlight, strength score of 5, agility score of 5. I ran up to targets one by one because I couldn't see them clearly from a distance. I punched a drum machine as hard as I could. I dodged holographic spikes until I couldn't. Level 1. Jane wrote it down without even looking up from her tablet. I clenched my jaw and walked back to the group. Then Layla took the field. She pulled 5 arrows, loaded them all at once, and fired. The arrows split mid-air, and each one hit a separate target simultaneously. She has telekinesis, Vorden said quietly next to me. Weak on its own, but combined with a bow she can control each arrow individually. Smart setup. Layla's strength score was only an 8. Her agility was the same as mine. The hologram spikes didn't care about telekinesis. She walked away with a level 2 rating. I could tell she wasn't happy about it. She stormed back into the group without making eye contact with anyone. I actually thought the test undersold her completely. Then Erin walked to the center of the field. 5 targets appeared. She formed an ice spear in her hand and threw it at the first one before the others had even registered she'd moved. She cleared all 5 targets almost as fast as Layla did. Then on the strength test, she spent a full minute charging power in both palms before releasing a column of ice at the drum. The number on the drum kept climbing. It stopped at 50. Vorden let out a low breath next to me. No wonder she walks around like she owns the place. For the agility test, the instructor told her she couldn't use her ability, just her body. She still lasted longer than anyone else before finally getting it. Level 5 rating. Erin walked back to the group exactly the same way she'd walked out. Expression unchanged. Like the number meant nothing to her either way. Finally, Vorden stepped up. Wish me luck, he said. I had no idea who he was talking to until he winked at me. I still wasn't sure if he was serious. Then the test started, and every single student who was watching from the group went completely and instantly silent. Vorden used ice. The exact same ice ability as Erin. He matched her performance on every single test almost point for point. Level 5 rating. Same as her. He came back over holding up his wrist showing me the number 5 like we were old friends celebrating something. Told you I was strong, he said. I watched him and kept thinking about the handshake. About the notification that said his ability had been rejected when he touched me. About the ice. He'd also tried to touch Erin. She refused the handshake, so he put his hand on her shoulder instead. Right before he suddenly had ice powers. Touching was the condition. He copies whatever ability the last person he physically touched was using. That's why the notification showed up when he grabbed my hand. It didn't work on me because whatever I had wasn't a standard ability that could be copied. My system rejected it automatically without me doing anything. Hey Vorden, I said quietly. Is your ability Can you copy other people's abilities? He looked at me for a long second, then smiled. I'm surprised you figured that out so fast. How did you know? I told him about the handshake, about the notification, about Aaron's shoulder. He thought about it and said that was actually impressive reasoning. Most people just assumed he'd bought the ice ability from a book somewhere. Then I asked the follow-up question. Are you an original? He didn't answer. He just winked again, which was basically a yes. Originals were people from families who never shared their abilities with anyone, kept them locked in the bloodline for generations. Usually the strongest abilities in existence. Vorden was one of them, and for some reason, he decided to spend his time talking to the only level 1 at the testing site who'd refused a free ability book. We got teleported back to the main academy and paired into class groups. Our teacher was a cheerful middle-aged man named Dell who smiled at everything. Dell walked us around the school, battle arenas, training rooms, homeroom classes, the library, explaining each area with the energy of someone who genuinely loved his job. But the moment we started walking, I noticed it happening. The higher levels gravitating toward each other, the lower levels getting pushed to the back without anyone saying a word. Peter and I ended up at the back of the group without even realizing it had happened. Peter had his head down. I'd seen the posture before. I'd worn it for years. Then Vorden's voice came from somewhere in the middle of the crowd. There you are. Come on. Let's look around together. He was talking to me. He noticed Peter standing alone too. You come as well. Stop looking like that. Peter pointed at himself confused. Who else would I be talking to? Vorden said. The three of us hung at the back of the tour together. Dell showed us the library and mentioned the first floor was the only one firsters could access. I made a note of that immediately. The library had books not available to the public. If anything in this academy was going to tell me what my ability actually was, it would be in there. We got our room assignments at the end of the tour. I got room 23. Vorden appeared behind me immediately. No way. I got the same number. Maybe it's fate. I found out later that Vorden had approached a random student in the hallway and swapped room numbers with him. The student saw his level 5 watch and didn't argue. The three of us ended up sharing a room, me, Vorden, and Peter. 3 beds spread out in a plain white room with nothing on the walls. Military efficiency. After unpacking, I headed to the library. Vorden invited himself along. Peter stayed behind to finish sorting his things but seemed more relaxed than he had all day. The first floor of the library was already busy. Round tables with glowing orbs in the center, privacy bubbles that block sound from anyone outside the table. I grabbed every book I could find about abilities. Vorden picked a random fiction novel and looked comfortable immediately. I started reading and cross-referencing everything. Hours passed. I went through book after book. Nothing matched what I had. No ability in any of these books got weaker in sunlight. Not one mentioned anything like my system. Then Vorden looked up from his novel. What are you actually looking for? You've grabbed like 15 books. I told him I was trying to decide what ability to pursue since I turned down the military's offer. Fair enough, he said. So you just didn't want to be indebted to them. Smart. He thought for a second. Is there anything specific you're curious about? Have you ever heard of an ability that gets weaker in sunlight? I asked. Vorden stared at me for a moment and then started laughing out loud. Weaker in sunlight? That's insane. Abilities are things the body learns. They don't work like that. What are you? Some kind of vampire. He was genuinely amused. I felt slightly embarrassed, but it was true. Every time direct sunlight hit me, my stats cut in half. That was just my reality, and I needed to understand it. I kept looking. Eventually, I wandered into the fiction section, and one title stopped me in my tracks. The Truth About Vampires. I pulled it off the shelf. Vampires were myths. Nobody had ever come forward claiming to be one even after abilities became real and widespread. This was almost definitely a waste of time. I read it anyway. Most of it had nothing to do with me. Drinking blood, turning into bats, hypnosis, illusions. None of that matched anything in my system. The only thing I could relate to was the weakness to sunlight. One single detail in an entire book of fantasy. I closed it and decided to call it a night. The second I closed the book, a notification appeared. You have gained more knowledge about the system. 10 EXP received. 90 out of 100 DXP. I read it 3 times, then read it again. The book about vampires had just given me EXP. A fiction book about mythical creatures that weren't supposed to be real. I immediately grabbed another fantasy book, one about dragons, and skimmed it the same way. Closed it. Nothing. No notification. No EXP. Zero reaction from the system. Then I grabbed a second vampire book from a different shelf. Read it the same way. Closed it. Still nothing. The system didn't react a second time. So it wasn't about vampires specifically. The system had rewarded me once for genuinely expanding my knowledge about something connected to what I was. And now it was done. I didn't want to believe it. The idea that a vampire mythology book was somehow directly connected to my ability was too ridiculous to accept comfortably. But the EXP was real, the notification was real, and I was now sitting at 90 out of 100, 10 points away from my first level up. I looked around and noticed Vorden had disappeared from the table at some point while I was reading. The sun outside the window was already setting. A new notification appeared. Daily quest complete. Avoid direct sunlight for 8 hours. 5 EXP awarded. 95 out of 100. I was 5 points from leveling up. I left the library and decided to check the training room before heading back. Late enough that most students had already returned to their dorms. Perfect timing. The training room was a massive oval dome, rows of equipment along the edges, a huge open space in the center, and the same testing machines from the field outside. I walked up to the drum strength machine, pulled my fist back, and hit it as hard as I could. The number climbed and stopped at 10. My actual stat, not the app version. I confirmed my theory. My system stats matched the Academy's equipment readings exactly. 5 in sunlight, 10 in the shade. The numbers were a direct mirror of each other. Then I tried the hologram spike machine. Last time I lasted 10 seconds in the sun would have stats. This time, 20 seconds at full strength. Exactly double. Theory confirmed. From the shadows near the back of the training room, someone was watching all of this happen. I didn't know it yet, but Layla had been practicing in there alone before I arrived. She'd hidden behind one of the large robots the moment she heard the doors open, and now she was watching the level 1 student who had supposedly no ability score a 10 on the strength test. Didn't he get a 5 during the actual testing? She thought, that's higher than my score. Was he hiding something this whole time? She kept watching without making a sound. I ran the agility test again. 20 seconds. Exactly what I expected. I closed the system screen, satisfied with the results, and headed back toward the dorms. Behind the robot, Layla watched me leave. She couldn't figure out why a student with a level 1 rating would deliberately hide their real strength. It made no sense to her. One thought settled in her mind as I disappeared through the door. Interesting. She had already decided she was going to keep a close eye on me going forward. The next morning, the alarm went off at 8 a.m. sharp. System notification waiting for me before I even sat up. Daily quest complete. Avoid sunlight for 8 hours. 5 EXP. 100 out of 100. I stared at that number for a second. Then a completely different notification replaced it. One I had been waiting for since the moment I first saw the system screen. If you think hitting level 1 was already a big deal, wait until you see what actually happens when Quinn hits level 2. It changes everything. Stay right there. Drop a comment. Do you think Quinn's ability is actually vampire-based? Because the system is starting to drop some serious hints. I stared at the number on my screen. 100 out of 100 EXP. The bar was full. And then, everything changed at once. A new notification exploded across my vision before I even had time to sit up properly from the bed. Loud, bright, impossible to ignore. Level up. You are now level 2. All base stats have increased. New features unlocked. Please check your status screen. I opened the screen with my eyes still half closed. Then I saw the numbers, and I was wide awake immediately. HP 20 out of 20, Strength 20, Agility 20, Stamina 20. Everything had doubled. Every single stat, just from hitting level 2. I sat there for a second just staring at it. If my stats doubled every time I leveled up, and the testing equipment mirrored my stats exactly, then the math was simple. At level 2 with full stats, I'd score a 20 on the strength test. At level 3, 30. The Academy's top students were scoring in the 50s. I just needed Tom. The problem was Tom. Daily quests gave me 10 XP per day if I completed both. That was slow. Way too slow if I wanted to level up before anyone figured out what I actually had. I needed to find faster ways to earn EXP, and the system had already shown me one option: fighting. That quest last night in the hallway gave me 50 EXP in a single go. I got dressed, grabbed 8 water bottles from the fridge, and headed down to the canteen with Vorden and Peter. First day of actual classes was starting today. The canteen was a massive plain hall. White walls, long tables, nothing on them. Students filing in and immediately sorting themselves by power level without anyone saying so. Higher levels took the center tables. Mid-levels clustered around them. Level 1s and 2s got pushed to the edges without a single word being exchanged about it. Peter and I were the only 2 level 1s in the class. We'd ended up at the back of the room before I even noticed it had happened again. Same as the tour yesterday. Then Vorden walked past the center tables, past the mid-levels, and came straight to the edge where we were sitting. Set his tray down like it was the most obvious choice. "What are you doing?" Peter asked quietly. "You don't have to sit here. You're a 5. You could sit anywhere." Vorden looked at him like that was the strangest sentence he'd ever heard. "We're friends. I don't care about the power level thing." He sat down and started eating. Peter and I exchanged a look. Neither of us knew what to do with someone like that. I ate everything on my tray, then everything Peter and Vorden hadn't finished, then went back for more water bottles to knock out the daily quest before we had to go outside. For a skinny guy, you really just demolished all of that, Vorden said, watching me finish the last bottle. I didn't have a great explanation for it, so I just shrugged. The hunger after healing last night had stayed with me slightly. A low constant feeling that didn't go away no matter how much I ate. Something about this system used food as fuel. Daily quest complete. Drink 2 liters of water. 5 EXP. 5 out of 200 for the next level. I closed the notification and we headed to our first class. Del was our teacher. Same cheerful energy as the tour. He started with history, the Great War, the Dalki, the originals who came forward with abilities and changed everything. Not all originals chose to share their powers with the world, Del said, losing his smile for just a moment. Some kept them locked within their family lines for generations. I glanced at Vorden. Vorden was looking at the ceiling like the topic had absolutely nothing to do with him. Subtle as a freight train. Del finished and dismissed us for a break. The 3 of us headed outside to grab a snack, and the moment I stepped through the door, the usual notification hit me. Your body is being hit by direct sunlight. All stats will be halved while in sunlight. HP dropped to 10. Strength to 10. I felt the weight settle over me immediately. Even at level 2, have stats put me back at level 1 numbers. The sunlight penalty didn't scale differently. It just cut whatever I had straight down the middle every time. You look sick again, Vorden said, looking at me sideways. And you're sweating already? Is this a regular thing for you? I told him I just ran hot. He didn't look convinced. We found a bench and sat down. The 3 of us were just talking, nothing important, when 6 students appeared in front of us wearing black armbands. Second years. They were bigger, older, and they had the kind of calm that comes from knowing nobody in front of them was going to do anything about whatever they decided to do next. We heard some rumors, the one in front said. Thought we'd come have a look. He glanced between me, Peter, and Vorden. We need a word. Come with us. Peter whispered that we should run. I told him running would make it worse, and that they'd done this in public on purpose. This was a statement to every other low-level watching. We followed them around to the side of the second-year building, quiet enough that nobody passing would interfere. Sitting on the steps was a tall guy with brown hair and a ponytail. His name was Mono. His wristwatch said 6. He stood up slowly when we arrived, like someone who had never once been in a hurry for anything in his life. There have been some rumors, Mono said, walking toward us. High-tier student hanging around with low tiers like they're worth something. It upsets the balance here. He stopped right in front of me and looked me over. I tried to use my inspect skill on him, and the screen that appeared was completely unreadable. Melting, blurred out entirely. The sunlight. My ability was being halved and inspect was part of that. Out here I couldn't read anyone's information at all. I filed that away and focused on Mono. Look at this one, Mono said. I'm standing right here, and there isn't even a trace of fear in his eyes. You know what I think? I think the war actually did this world a favor. My blood went hot the second he said it. I lost my parents to that war. I'd grown up with nothing because of it. And this guy was calling it a favor while looking at me like I was nothing. I threw a punch before I'd finished deciding to do it. Mono stepped back before my fist had even fully extended. It hit empty air. Clean miss. Like he'd read my mind. Vorden grabbed for him immediately. Mono moved again. Same thing. Nothing. Like fighting smoke. He hadn't even raised his hands. I didn't come here to fight, Mono said, straightening his collar. This is a warning. There are people in the school the military itself won't touch. Keep testing them and they'll get involved. Then he walked back up the stairs and through the door without looking back once. The 6 second years dispersed, and the 3 of us were standing there alone. Are they serious? Peter said. Why don't the teachers stop this? He genuinely couldn't understand it. I could, and the answer was uncomfortable. It works in their favor, I said. The strong bully the weak. The weak chase power to protect themselves, and the only place to get that power is the military. So the school lets it happen, Vorden said quietly. He'd gotten there faster than I expected, because broken people are easier to recruit. I nodded. Then I told Vorden the part I didn't want to say. That for now, we needed to split up. That as long as he was with us, bigger problems kept showing up, problems aimed at me and Peter. Why should I listen to them? Vorden snapped. The outburst surprised me. He was genuinely angry, not at me, but at the situation, at being told who he could and couldn't be around. I explained it as clearly as I could. He wasn't the one who'd pay the price if this escalated. I was. Peter was. And right now we weren't strong enough to back up the attention we were drawing. Vorden went quiet. Then he said fine in a voice that had all the warmth stripped out of it and walked off toward the dorms. Peter watched him go and said we maybe could have explained it better. No, I said. It's better this way. And I'm in it, not because I wanted Vorden gone, but because I knew what came next. I needed to get stronger, not fast. What I didn't know was that Vorden hadn't gone quiet because he agreed with me. He was quiet because he was furious. Not at me, at the people trying to control his choices. Vorden wasn't the type to just accept that and move on. He had already decided he was going to do something about it, on his own terms, in his own way. That much I learned later. For now, I had a training room and a theory I wanted to test. I told Peter to head back and rest. He was jumpy enough without following me into something else tonight. But as we were walking back down the hallway, I spotted something that made me stop. A student pressed against the wall, face already marked up, someone standing over him swinging. I caught a glimpse of the wristwatch on the guy doing the swinging, level 1.2. Lower than Vorden, high enough to bully someone weaker. I knew exactly who the person against the wall was, not Peter. He'd walked ahead of me and somehow managed to bump into the wrong person in the span of about 2 minutes. The guy had already hit him at least twice. You think you can just bump into me and say sorry? He pulled his arm back and wound up for another swing at Peter's face. I pretended to trip, walked directly into the guy's arm as he swung and knocked him sideways. The punch missed Peter completely. The guy spun around to face me. He looked at my watch, saw the 1, and every ounce of hesitation left his face immediately. What is a level 1 piece of garbage doing getting in my way? I was actually waiting to see how long it would take for someone like you to show up, I said. Turns out I lost the bet with myself. Thought it would be at least a couple of days. A system notification appeared. An ability has been detected. Initiating battle mode. New quest. First fight. Power level 1.2. When the fight to gain 50 EXP. 50 EXP. I felt my entire mood shift the moment I read the number. This was exactly how I was going to level up faster. The system rewarded me for winning fights. Every single one. The guy had both hands hidden behind his back and was charging something. I didn't need the system to tell me what was coming. The stance was obvious enough. Come on then, he said, rolling his shoulders. What happened to the big attitude from a second ago? I told him it was still there. He charged anyway. His hand came out fast. Fingers hardened into something like claws. Transformation ability limited to his hands. He slashed at me and I got my arm up just in time to block. The claws caught my forearm anyway. A clean line opened up. The system flashed. HP 16 out of 20. I gritted my teeth and reset my stance. He came again with the right hand. I ducked under it and drove my fist into his stomach with everything I had. He made a sound I won't describe and stumbled back hard. What? How does he hit that hard? He thought out loud. I could see it on his face. He hadn't expected that from a level 1. He recovered and went for my back while I was still close. Claws caught me across the shoulder. HP 12 out of 20. 2 more hits like that and this becomes a real problem. I grabbed him by the legs, lifted, and threw him sideways into the wall. Peter made a sound behind me like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Honestly, neither could I. I followed up immediately before he could recover. I wasn't going to leave this half-finished. People like this only learned one language and I needed to make sure he was fluent. One kick straight to the midsection with everything I had left. He folded, coughed hard, went down, and stayed down on the floor. Congratulations. Quest complete. 50 EXP received. 55 out of 200 EXP. The number appeared and I felt the satisfaction hit before I even processed it. Then a second notification appeared right after the first one. Additional quest reward. Skill unlocked. Inspect level 1. I had to stop myself from reacting out loud. I had to stop myself from reacting visibly in the hallway. A new skill. My first actual skill unlocked since the system activated. I needed to test it immediately. Is he dead? Peter asked from behind me, voice very small. The guy coughed again loudly. No, I said, but if he comes looking for us again, he's going to wish he was. I looked at Peter without thinking about it and the inspect skill activated on its own the moment I focused on him. A screen appeared next to him instantly. Name, Peter Chuck. Race, human. Ability, none. HP 3 out of 5. Blood type A positive. And then to lines of question marks where more information should have been. The blood type hit me as strange. Of everything the system could tell me about a person, why would it flag blood type specifically? What was that supposed to help me do? I filed it away and walked over to the guy still on the floor. Inspect activated again. Name, Kyle Main. Race, human. Ability, transformation. HP 1 out of 8. Blood type B negative. HP 1 out of 8. So I hadn't needed to knock him all the way to 0. Just down to 1. That was good to know. It meant the system counted victory before it got to anything worse. Then a new notification appeared that made me go completely still. Optional quest has been granted. Drink the blood of your victim to absorb a stat point. I stared at that for a long time. A stat point was genuinely valuable. I also was not going to do that. Absolutely not. I closed the notification and didn't look at it again. I told Peter to head back to the dorm. Vorden would be back soon, I said, which wasn't exactly true, but I needed him gone for the next few minutes. Peter hesitated, then went. As he walked away, I noticed he kept glancing back over his shoulder at Kyle on the floor. He thought I was worried about Kyle. I wasn't looking at Kyle. I was looking at the small amount of blood Kyle had coughed onto the floor. I stood there for a moment longer than I should have. Then I turned around and walked away fast. Quinn, you are genuinely losing your mind right now, I said out loud to my own reflection in the bathroom mirror. Walk away from it. So I walked away. I went to the nearest bathroom, stepped up to the mirror, and checked the cuts on my arm and shoulder. Then I watched something I hadn't expected to see. The skin was knitting back together, slowly, but visibly. Right there in the mirror, in real time. The cut on my arm was already half closed. The shoulder was following. A few minutes passed. I opened my status screen. HP 18 out of 20, then 20 out of 20. Fully healed. Then the system added one more line. Your HP has been healed. Your hunger has grown. Right on cue, my stomach made itself very loudly known. The healing used calories. Food was fuel for the system. It made sense. Energy doesn't come from nowhere. The system pulled it from my body, and my body needed to replace it. I'd need to eat more than normal, a lot more than normal. I left the bathroom and headed to the training room. Late enough now that the halls were mostly empty. I had one more thing I wanted to confirm before calling it a night. The training room was empty when I arrived. I walked to the strength drum and hit it at full power. The number climbed, stopped at 20, level 2, full stats in the dark, perfect. I ran the agility test next, 40 seconds this time. Double what I'd managed even at full strength the night before. My stats hadn't just doubled, my real performance had doubled. Hidden in the shadows near the back equipment, Layla was watching again. She'd been in here practicing her bow when she heard the doors. She hid before I noticed her. She watched me score a 20 on strength. Watch me run 40 seconds on the agility machine. She thought about the 5 she'd seen me score in direct sunlight at the testing field. Something didn't add up for her. Either this student had been completely sandbagging during the official test, or whatever his ability was, it had conditions that nobody here understood. Either way, she had made her decision. She was watching this one closely, and she was going to keep watching until the picture made sense. I left the training room satisfied and walked back to the dorm. Vorden was already in bed pretending to be asleep. Peter was out. I set my stuff down and lay back. Tomorrow was another day of classes. Another day of sunlight cutting my stats in half while everyone around me treated the power level number on my wrist like my entire identity. But I was level to now. I had the inspect skill. I knew how the EXP system worked. I knew how the healing worked. I was starting to actually understand what I had. And somewhere between the vampire book giving me EXP, the blood type showing up in inspect, the optional quest I was definitely not thinking about anymore, a picture was forming. I didn't like what the picture looked like, but I was going to have to deal with it eventually. One level at a time, one quest at a time, one fight at a time. That was the plan. Drop a comment. Do you think Quinn's going to accept what the system is actually turning him into? Or is he going to fight it the whole way? Because both options lead somewhere wild. The next morning started exactly the same way every morning had started since I got to this academy. Alarm at 8 a.m. System notification waiting before I even opened my eyes. Daily quest complete. Avoid direct sunlight for 8 hours. 5 EXP awarded. 60 out of 200. Slow dot to slow. I needed to find more fights. More quests. More anything. I was hungrier than usual again. The healing from last night had pulled more from my body than I expected. I got dressed and headed straight to the canteen without waiting for the others. I loaded my tray with everything available and ate all of it before Vorden and Peter had even sat down. Then I finished what they left. Peter had stopped looking surprised by this. You eat like something is chasing you, Vorden said, watching me drain the last water bottle. I told him I just had a fast metabolism. He clearly didn't believe me. The water quest ticked over while we were still at the table. 5 EXP, 65 out of 200. I closed the notification and focused on what was coming. First real day of structured classes. They'll kick things off with more history. The power level system, how it worked, why it existed, the 8 tiers and how they broke down into decimals all the way from 1.1 to 8.9. Power level isn't everything, Del said cheerfully. Fighting ability, strategy, experience. These matter just as much in a real conflict. Nobody in the room believed him. When class broke, I already knew what was waiting outside. Sunlight. Have stats. The usual. I drank an extra bottle of water before stepping out, and at least I wouldn't dehydrate. But today something different happened. We barely made it 10 steps from the building when 6 second-year students appeared again. Same black armbands, same energy as yesterday. My stomach dropped. I thought Mono had given us a warning. I thought we had at least a couple of days before anything escalated. I was wrong about that. These weren't Mono's people though. Different faces, harder ones, and they weren't interested in talking. They walked straight to Peter without looking at anyone else. Level 1. One of them said, grabbing Peter by the collar before any of us could react. You bumped into one of ours last night apparently. Time to settle that. Peter went white. He didn't say anything. He just looked at me with that expression I recognized. The one that said he'd already accepted what was about to happen. I stepped forward. The second year who had Peter turned to look at me slowly. He checked my watch, saw the number, and smiled the way people smile when they think there are no consequences. You want in on this too, level 1. Because we can absolutely arrange that. The others spread out slightly. Not enough to block escape, just enough to make a point. Vorden stepped up next to me before I said anything. He hadn't stormed off this time. He'd come outside with us, and I hadn't noticed until right now. He was still here. The second year looked at Vorden's watch, saw the 5. The smile changed. Not gone, but recalculated. A 5 was a different conversation than a 1. This doesn't involve you, the second year said to Vorden. His voice had lost about half its confidence in the span of 1 second. Vorden smiled pleasantly back at him. Funny thing, Vorden said. I'm pretty sure it does. He hadn't moved, hadn't done anything physical. He was just standing there, and it was somehow more threatening than anything else he could have done. The second years looked at each other. The one holding Peter's collar let go, not quickly, slowly, like he was choosing to let go rather than being made to. A small dignity thing. This isn't over, he said to Peter. Peter nodded like he already knew. They left. The 6 of them walked away and didn't look back once. Vorden watched them go without changing expression. I thought we agreed to split up, I said to Vorden. He turned to look at me with his eyebrows raised slightly. I agreed that it was the right call, he said. I didn't agree to disappear. I didn't have a response to that. He was right and I knew it. There was a difference between not drawing attention and abandoning people, and Vorden understood that better than I had given him credit for. Peter let out a breath that he had clearly been holding since the moment those armbands appeared. He didn't say anything. He just nodded once in Vorden's direction. That was enough. The rest of the morning passed without incident. Battle theory class, equipment orientation, a brief session in the arena watching second years demonstrate different ability combinations. I paid close attention to everything in the arena, not because I was interested in their ability specifically, but because every fight I watched taught me something about timing and distance. My stats were going to keep growing every time I leveled up, but stats without any understanding of how to actually use them in a fight were just numbers on a screen. After the arena session, we had free time before dinner. Vorden disappeared somewhere. Peter went back to the dorm. I went to the library. Second visit, same mission as before. The first floor was quieter in the afternoon. I grabbed the same seat as yesterday and started pulling books again. This time not about abilities, about history, about the war, about the Dalki. If the system had given me EXP for the vampire book because it was connected to what I was, then maybe learning more about the world I was operating in would trigger something similar. I read for 2 hours. Nothing. No notification. No EXP. The system stayed quiet the entire time. Whatever triggered the reward from the vampire book wasn't going to be replicated that easily. I was about to close the last book when I heard a voice from the table behind me. Quiet enough that it wasn't meant to carry. But the orb at my table wasn't active, so I caught it clearly. He's been in here for 2 hours, and he's reading military history. The level 1 who scored a 10 on the strength machine last night. It was Layla's voice. I didn't turn around, so she had seen me in the training room. I'd wondered if anyone had been in there. Now I knew. And now I knew she'd been watching long enough to clock exactly what books I was pulling. I kept reading like I hadn't heard anything. A few seconds later, I heard the chair scrape back and footsteps heading toward the exit. She was leaving. She'd gotten what she came for. The question was what she was going to do with it. Layla was level 2. The system had undersold her completely in my opinion. She was smarter than her rating suggested. That made her interesting. And interesting people in a place like this were either useful or dangerous. Sometimes both at the same time. I filed her away in the same mental folder as Vorden and kept reading. Dinner that night was louder than usual. Something had happened between 2 of the higher level students during the arena session, apparently. A disagreement that had gotten physical. I didn't know the details and didn't care about them. What I did notice was that the usual rigid seating arrangement had shifted slightly. People were distracted, talking across tables. I used it. I ate fast, grabbed extra water, and slipped out before anyone paid attention to where the level 1 in the corner was going. The training room was calling. Empty again. Perfect. I ran every test available to me. Strength drum, agility spikes, the speed reaction machine I hadn't tried before. I recorded every number in my head carefully. Strength, 20. Agility, 40 seconds. Speed reaction. My hand was hitting the triggers before I consciously processed where they were. The system wasn't just improving my stats. My reflexes were operating differently than they should have for someone with no combat training. I was reacting faster than I could think, like the system had rewired something underneath. I stood in the middle of the empty training room and thought about that for a while. The book had dissolved into the system. The system was changing me, and I still didn't fully know into what. Vampire. The word kept coming back. Weaker in sunlight, fast healing, and specs showing blood types for no obvious reason. Optional quests I was refusing to think about too hard. The evidence wasn't subtle anymore. It had never really been subtle. I'd just been refusing to accept the shape of what was in front of me because accepting it meant something I wasn't ready for. I sat down on the floor of the empty training room with my back against one of the machines and just let myself think it through completely for the first time without flinching away. My parents had left me this book. They hadn't told me what it was. The government agent who delivered it said it was the only thing they possessed, which meant they knew what it was too. Had my parents known what was in this book? Had they chosen to leave it to me specifically? Or had it just been the only thing they had? Were they like me? Were they something else entirely? I had no answers. I had a tiny apartment, a dead-end power level rating, a system that rewarded me for winning fights, and the growing suspicion that I wasn't entirely human anymore. Great. Absolutely fantastic. My parents left me a mystery book. The system is turning me into something, and I still had no real answers. This was going great. I got up off the floor, dusted myself off, and decided the self-pity portion of the evening was officially over. I had quests to complete and a level to grind toward. Feelings later. I ran the training equipment one more time before leaving. 40 seconds on the agility machine this time. 2 seconds better than the run an hour ago. The system was still climbing. When I got back to the room, Vorden was awake, lying on his bed staring at the ceiling. Peter was asleep already. Vorden looked over when I came in, but didn't ask where I'd been. You know, Vorden said quietly, still looking at the ceiling, I've been told my whole life who I can and can't be around. Who's worth my time based on their number? It's exhausting. I sat on the edge of my bed. I didn't say anything. Sometimes the right response to someone actually talking is to just let them keep talking. My family has expectations, he continued. My ability has expectations. Everyone has a version of what I'm supposed to be doing with what I was born with, and none of them asked me what I wanted. I thought about my parents, about the book they'd left me, about the choice they had apparently made to pass something like this down to a kid they knew would grow up alone. I get that, I said. It was all I said. Vorden glanced over, seemed satisfied with that, and went back to staring at the ceiling. We stayed like that for a while in the quiet. The next morning brought another notification before I opened my eyes, and this one was different from anything that had come before. A new message type 1 hadn't seen yet. Special condition detected. You have gone without consuming blood for an extended period. Passive stat growth rate has been reduced by 15% until condition is addressed. I stared at that message for a very long time without moving. The room was still dark. Peter and Vorden were still asleep. I read it 3 more times to make sure I'd understood it correctly. The system wasn't just hinting anymore. It was applying a penalty, a real, measurable, mechanical penalty, tied directly to something I had been categorically refusing to do. 15% reduction in passive stat growth. That meant every level I gained from here was going to be weaker than it should have been unless I dealt with the condition. I closed the notification carefully and lay back down on the ceiling and thought, and continued to think until the alarm went off and Vorden sat up yawning. I wasn't going to do it. That was still the answer. But the system had just made the cost of not doing it very clear, and I was going to have to find a way to work around a penalty that only grew, unless, and this was the thought that actually made me sit up straight, unless there was another way to address the condition that the system hadn't explicitly ruled out yet. Blood didn't have to mean what the optional quest had implied. The system had offered one method. It hadn't said it was the only method. That was a distinction worth exploring very carefully. I filed it away for later and got dressed. Breakfast, waterquest.classes.training. The routine was the routine, and right now routine was the only thing keeping everything moving forward. Because here was the truth of my situation stripped down to its bare bones. I was a level 2 ability user in a school full of people who thought I had nothing. I had a system nobody else in the world appeared to have. I had stats that doubled every level. I had an inspect skill that read people's information mid-fight. I had regeneration, and I had whatever was coming next, because the system had only just started showing me what it was capable of. Every day something new unlocked. Every fight taught me something. The level 1 on everyone's wrist was temporary. Everything in this academy was temporary. The hierarchy, the bullying, the numbers people used to decide who was worth talking to. I had watched Aaron freeze someone's hand without flinching. I had watched Vorden copy an ability through a handshake and perform it perfectly minutes later. I had watched Layla split 5 arrows mid-flight. Every single one of them was operating within the limits of what they already had. I was operating within a system that had no visible ceiling, and I hadn't even scratched the surface of what was inside it. The canteen filled up around me while I ate breakfast and thought about all of this. Peter sat down across from me with his tray. Vorden dropped into the seat next to me and stole a piece of bread off my plate. I let him have it, ate the rest, drank the water, watched the EXP tick up, watched the notification appear, watched the number climb toward 200. One level at a time, one fight at a time, one quest at a time. Whatever this system was turning me into, I was going to be the best version of it that had ever existed. And the people who thought a number on a wrist was the whole story, they were going to find out very soon that they had been reading the wrong thing entirely. That's where we leave Quinn for now. Level 2 hungry, healing faster than he should, carrying a secret that's getting harder to ignore with every single day that passes. If this story hit different for you, drop a comment, subscribe, and come back for the next part. Because what happens when Quinn finally can't avoid the truth anymore? That's when things get really interesting.